Welcome to the Golden Moment podcast. My name's Mijo Biscan. Thanks for tuning in. This conversation that I had today was with my long-term friend, Kirsty Morphett, also long-term musical collaborator. We've played lots of music together. Kirsty she's an amazing singer-songwriter, incredible vocalist, but also a deep lover of music and sharing music with other people and inviting people to engage in music. So she is an advocate of the arts. And in this conversation, we talked about the power of music, why music is so important, why it's an important part of our culture, and, you know, some of the divisions we have in our culture when it comes to music of the performer and the audience. And what Kirsty's trying to do is she's trying to blur those lines and make people realize that we can all engage in creative activity and in music. And so it was an awesome conversation. And so here's my conversation with Kirsty Morphett. So I am here with Miss Kirsty Morphett, musician, old friend, lover of music, which is what we're really going to talk about in this episode. How's it going, Kirsty?
Hey, Mio. Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Pleasure. It's been a while. There's been a pandemic on.
Indeed, yes. But I've seen all your cool stuff on the internet, which has been good to see.
I've been making things go onto the internet. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. This will be one more thing I put there.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think this gives us a really great opportunity to talk about music because we have played lots of music together. We've been in a band.
Indeed.
You've played lots of music. I've played lots of music. We love the stuff. And
Indeed.
So we're probably just going to have a mutual appreciation session about music. But
yes,
one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about it is because it's a central thing that you're doing at the moment with something called collective music. So maybe just start off telling us a bit about what that is.
Okay. Well, I guess collective music is really, it's come out of my teaching work and also my philosophy on music and what that is, and the place that it sort of has in our lives and sort of what we've lost in regards to music in our culture and the way that it's become a commodity and something that's consumed, and there's this audience performer sort of divide, and there's the people who do music and the people who don't do music, and people who have permission to do it and those who don't. And so there's this cultural kind of attitude around it, which, you know, I would love to make some kind of contribution into shifting, because I think that music it's a language that everybody can speak. It's a language that is really innate to humanity. It's something that's just emerged from humanity all over the world in every different culture. There's music in every single human culture, and so that really proves to me that it's absolutely innate, and the place for music is at the heart of the community. It's a language that we use to process our experience, to connect with one another, to make sense of our own internal experience and share that with others. It's something that we use to create unity, shared understanding, and, you know, I think that it needs to come back to that center of community life where it's something that everyone can participate in, even to the most sort of basic degree. It doesn't have to be, you know, not everyone has to be a pro, not everyone has to be a virtuoso, or even have music as the central kind of theme of their life, but I believe that it should be something everyone can participate in and contribute to in some way, and benefit from the connection that it creates. So collective music is really about creating an educational space and a community space where we can learn music together, create music together, practice music together, and kind of use that as a healing platform, cultural healing platform, so that, you know, we can kind of, you know, maybe sort of work a little bit with the divisions that have kind of started to get created within our culture and our society and start to come to a better understanding of one another through music, because it has that power. It has the power to make us understand each other. It has the power to connect us. So I think that power is really quite immense. It's quite profound, and we are not utilizing that power fully in the way that we, in the role that music sort of has in our culture currently. Even though, you go to a music concert of your favorite band and you experience that sense of unity and connection with everybody there, and that's beautiful and wonderful, and that should stay there. And there's all this other stuff that that we're not utilizing, that we don't have a context for. So in some sort of small way, I'm trying to provide that with collective music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When you talk about, this division that started happening at some point where it was a part of every culture and everyone in the community was involved on some level, where do you see that line where things started to kind of split off to performer and audience?
Well, it would be really difficult to really pinpoint it. I think you would probably have to be a historian of some kind, or a social, historian. But I think that probably to a large degree, this happened, well, especially given, our Western culture and where that comes from, essentially being Europe, and that in Europe there was a point where art music started to flourish, and music started to become supported by the aristocracy, and like composers like Mozart or Liszt, or these sort of classical composers were supported by the aristocracy, and it was very much the aristocracy would consume the music of these very talented composers, and there was that, and I think a whole lot of other stuff that was going on in the culture at the time that was sort of separating out the haves and the have-nots, and there's the economic kind of situation where people sort of were locked into a peasant life, and there's just, I think it's sort of representative of a division sort of in many ways, but then music just became this sort of luxury thing that the well-to-do people would consume and enjoy in the way that they did with sort of lots of things, theatre, and the arts became an entertainment for the wealthy. So I think that and then also the level of education that was required for people to be producing the kind of art that those kinds of composers were producing. They really needed to dedicate their lives, and they needed to be supported by that aristocracy. So what emerged from that was an elitism. It's like, if you are good enough, then you will be supported to produce the best possible art, which is wonderful in some ways, because those people were given a place to really, really take it to the highest possible level. And there's so much beauty that came from that. But it did have that other side where it's really started to disconnect. It disconnected the folk and the art. And that the folk music was then sort of looked down upon, and it wasn't sort of supported as much, and it just created this cultural situation where that just sort of, the community music and the art music, or the folk music and the art music, just started to diverge. That's, with my understanding. I'm sure there could be more to it, and a musicologist or a musical historian could have a lot more to say about that, but, that's how it seems.
Makes sense. I mean, if I'm to think about it, I would probably just go back to the beginning of recorded music, but as soon as you started, bringing up much earlier forms of art music and whatever, it becomes obvious that at some point there's a sitting audience waiting to be entertained by something seemingly miraculous or at a very high end or something, rather than that communal aspect of music forming together for for ritual or for storytelling, etc.
Yeah.
And I suppose that split feels like it has continued to accelerate. I don't know if you agree with this, but that there is a very strong boundary between consumption and creation, and lots of people consume lots and lots of music and they love it, but there's a thought in their mind where they're like, that's just for special kind of people who make music, and I'm not that kind of person. I just
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and you know that I think it comes from that same place, and it also, you know, that's also got to do with education as well. That music education isn't, you know, part of the family life. You know, I love this guy from the States called Victor Wooten. He wrote a really cool book called The Music Lesson, and he's also done a couple of great TED Talks, which I've shared a couple of times on social media. And, you know, he talks about how, you know, with language, no one kind of says to a kid, oh, you know, you can't speak English yet, you know, you're not allowed to talk. Like the kid just hangs around and absorbs the language that's being spoken. And as they start to pick up words, they start to say words, they get spoken to in that language, they get encouraged and celebrated when they start having more words come through. And they just, through immersion and engagement, they just learn the language. No one really teaches them. Really, mostly what we get taught is how to read and how to apply that language to our education, but speaking, that just happens, right? So we don't get that opportunity in music. You know, this Victor Wooten says, you know, what if people were just from the year dot, you know, from babies, they were just in musical spaces and they just got encouraged in the same way to try things out and participate and do a little bit here and there until they started kind of gaining their legs, then they got engaged with and encouraged. Music would be just as intuitive as any spoken language. There's nothing special in a sense about musicality. It's innate. It's just as innate as our spoken languages. It's just sounds put in, you know, an organized form, and that's innate to us to do that. So yeah, I guess, sorry, I've partly forgotten your question, but
I think it's such a powerful framing of art and creativity and music. Yeah, I loved it when you're saying it, that it's so innate. That example, it is so convincing because we know it's innate the way that language essentially is innate, and it's a different form of language. And when you were describing, I was imagining it, you know, being in a culture where there's music around all the time and it's cultivated. The word cultivation kept coming to mind. Like, it's cultivated and it's encouraged and it's accepted and it's valued and stuff. To continue that sort of vision, and I'm sure you've thought about this, what type of world do you envision? Just say everyone was engaged in that way with music. How do you think it would affect people individually and, you know, culture-wide? What would we see?
Well, I think, you know, it's another level of communication, and it's another level of, because it has the capacity to, you know, essentially if people knew how to create music together on the spot. I mean, I don't know about you, I'm sure you've experienced this, but you know, for me, when I do that with others, I feel connected to them. I feel like there's a bonding experience that happens when I do that. And even in a group of people that I've never met before, you know, I run my open jams, which is essentially a group improvisational experience with, you know, some of the same people and some different people every time. So there's always an element of people you don't know in there. And, you know, by the end of that session, you've come to one of those before. By the end of that session, there's this camaraderie. There's this sort of sense of having had a shared experience. You've been on a journey together. What that does, it just connects people. It just unifies people. It breaks down walls. So what if that was just a feature of our community life? I don't know, the implications are pretty big, really, when you think about the different factions of people, different religions, different political opinions, different ways of living, different lifestyles, different choices. Essentially the things that make us different to one another can be kind of softened. It doesn't mean everyone would become the same, of course, but we can utilize the power of having that shared experience and the bonding that can occur to understand each other better, to because when you're connected with somebody and you think differently, you can't just pigeonhole them. You can't just say, you can't just judge them out of hand. You can't just I know this has sort of happened during this year with the pandemic. I've found people within my circles, within my sphere, that I've found myself quite strongly disagreeing with. But I've also had this thing of, well, but I also feel connected to these people as well. So I can't just dismiss them. I have to actually dig deeper within myself to try and understand where they're coming from. So I think that just the fact that connection has been created, it gives us the opportunity, and it kind of invites us to dig a little deeper within our humanity, to find and to sort of find our connections, to trust our connections, and to actually look for them, and to, I guess, to not take the easy road of just dismissing people you don't agree with, or that you might find some kind of some argument with.
Yeah.
So I guess, but just to finish that off, that the implications are a more bonded culture, in essence, and
I could use that right now.
Yeah.
I think this year has been a very divisive kind of year on many different fronts and topics.
Yeah.
That unity, that description of unifying, we've played music together for a long time, and a common experience in our rehearsals is we go into a song, whether we're just kind of making something up and we're jamming, or we're rehearsing something, and something happens in that space and everyone's contributing something to it, and then obviously two people are contributing something, but a third thing is created, and then the thing is precious, and it's a type of peak experience.
Yes.
Then you're in this kind of world, you're almost in your own world experiencing it, and then you open your eyes and you see the other people in the room, and they all have just had that same experience. That's very powerful, in bonding people together.
Oh yeah, so much.
And the word that is coming to mind with that experience, because it's a musical experience, but it's also an emotional sort of experience, is harmony. And harmony in the music, but it's when two things are resonating at different frequencies, and then they come in together.
Yes.
Then there's this unity and connection, and quite a powerful thing kind of occurs in that space.
Yeah.
Thinking about two people who are, angry with each other, or having very different thoughts. They're in different frequencies, whatever.
Yeah.
And imagine them jamming together. They'd just be trying to screw each other over, and it just wouldn't. You're I'm just gonna do this thing, rah. Because I agree with what they're doing over there. That's not the rhythm I want to play to. I'm playing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And that's kind of what is happening in our culture a lot. People are playing completely different music or whatever. So to try
Yeah.
create a space, which is what you do, create a space where they can come into harmony and have a shared moment of unity. It is very powerful.
I mean, to start with, they're just in the same room together. So they're not on the internet. They're not like in another country. They're not, you're in the same, of course that's if you are in the same room. But what I like to sort of, what I find myself saying a lot is, music is, we're learning music, but what is music actually teaching us? And in the music, if we choose to take it this way, if we choose to use it in this way, the music provides us with every opportunity to come to know ourselves better, to kind of surrender our ideas about what things should be like, or to surrender our expectations and our judgments. And it also, that's within ourselves, but it also asks us to do that with somebody else. Because if we're serving the music, if we want that peak experience, if we want to really utilize the power of music and experience what's possible within it, we really have to kind of park our judgments. We have to park our expectations. We have to be present. We have to, accept where we are. We have to accept where other people are. We have to be compassionate towards ourselves and others. We have, there's all kinds of things that if we want the music to be the best music that can emerge in that moment, the music asks us to be the best people we can be. So music is teaching us all the time if we take hold of that, and you can go through your life learning music without really taking hold of that, but the opportunity is there. So that's also a big part of what I'm doing with my work, is opening up those opportunities for growth as human beings within the music. So the music, it's not only about the music, it's about life, it's about being a human being, it's about relating to oneself, relating to other people, understanding our place in the universe, all kind, it goes, as far as you want it to go, really.
Yeah, I agree. A while ago I had this realization with my music practice that, for a long time it was about learning how to play music and learning how to express myself or whatever. And then, this idea of mastery that I love. And I did Taekwondo for many years, and a big idea of Taekwondo is mastery, mainly physical, but mental, spiritual kind of mastery. And there's lots of repetition. It can get really boring. And so, that's like a dojo that I would go to train myself in those areas. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago that I transferred that idea to my music practice. I was like, okay,
great.
This music practice, it's much, much deeper than making a song or saying something nice or convincing or emotive. It almost or anyone else.
Yeah, and it's much bigger than my career. It's much bigger than the platform that I'm sort of putting myself on. It's much bigger. I know for me, I had a big point where I realized that I had been using music as a way to be worthy. To being a musician meant that you're special. And being a good singer means that people, adore you, and, and I will admit that used to be what I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
And then there was a point at which it was like, oh, it can't be about that. Because making it about that is like basically creating your own private hell. Because you're so fixated upon the kind of ego gratification of it and the validation, from a more vulnerable place. Like, I need validation. This is how I get my validation, That, it was a massive, massive shift when I realized that if that's what I'm using music for, I'm on a never-ending treadmill that I will never be satisfied by.
Yeah.
So I had to, you know, that really shifted, and then I was like, well, what is music then? What am I really doing this for? And you know, that's when it's sort of the journey of realizing that it's about understanding myself, that it's about, you know, essentially self-realization. You know, ultimately that's what it's about, and that music is the path to that. And once it became that, it's like, well, it doesn't matter if I, you know, have a music career and I'm a, you know, or, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm a famous musician or if I write the best songs in the world that everybody loves. I mean, yeah, like I can have that aim, and that's a beautiful aim to have with your creative practice. But where is it coming from? You know, is it coming from a need for validation, or is it coming from a true devotion to what it is that music is teaching us? And what, you know, what it means to be a creative person. I mean, like I almost don't like saying that word. It's like a creative person. There are no non-creative people. Persons are creative. You know, the human being is a creative being. There is no, like, you know, and how you choose to use that creativity is, of course, there's many ways, but it just really changed the way that I was, the place that music had in my life, and the reason why I was doing it. Yeah.
Are there any specific things you'd like to share about that, the challenge of engaging your creative practice in that way, what it reveals about you? Were there any main things that it helped you discover?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, like a couple of years ago, I sort of gave myself a little project of collating all of my lyrics from like ever since I was writing lyrics, and I wanted to just put it together in a bit of a compendium. And as I was doing that, I was reading, you know, obviously them all, and sort of looking at the process I was going through. And I remember even late teens and sort of early 20s and through my 20s, the stuff I was writing about, I didn't understand. At the time, I didn't really know what I was writing. I really didn't. It's like, you know, I got into creative space, and what emerged in that creative space was kind of from the subconscious, and, you know, it would come out on the page and I would be like, what the hell does that mean, you know? But then with the benefit of hindsight and a little bit more life experience, you know, in my late 30s, I went, oh my God, that shit was prophetic. It was basically telling me what I was going to go through. And it was tapping into my own internal wisdom of what I understood. And through writing that was helping me to unravel my self-knowledge. And even though I didn't fully grasp what it was really about at the time, I now see that that's what I was doing. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, now my music practice has sort of become a little bit different. It's less focused on songwriting and more focused on just creative improvisation. Not, you know, songs will probably still come, but, you know, that's not the primary focus. And I suppose now it's a little bit more about a flow state and tapping into a flow state and tapping into like a moment-to-moment expression that can come from that.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I guess is just more appropriate for this sort of stage in my life. And each different stage, you know, the music is serving my unfolding in some kind of way. You know, so whatever. I was listening to a interview with Jacob Collier the other day, who, I don't know if you've come across him, but he's absolutely brilliant. And you know, the way that he talks about following your fascination and the amount of practice that he's done in his life, which is obviously quite a lot given his skill level. he sort of says, like, I almost feel like I've never really practiced. I've only played. Because it's always been in a creative space that he's done his practice. It's always been in a space of fascination with, with applying, a concept or a structure or something to serve something, to create. He only learns what he needs in order to create. So it's never just about the thing or about gaining a skill so that he can be really good. It's always about that creative application. And I really love that approach to practice, because it always just keeps you engaged with yourself and in relationship with yourself and what is kind of emerging and how the music interacts with that. And it's a really beautiful way to engage with practice.
Yeah. I think that word play gets forgotten a lot when it comes to music. Like, I think about this often, even when I'm practicing or wanting to write a song, sitting to write a song. I think of the word play a lot, and it's called playing music. It's not called like drudging
working music
or even the word practice. I mean, practice is very important, and we'll talk about practice in a second. But I think that play is so important, because we can get so serious about the thing we're doing, and we can think it really matters if we hit a wrong note during practice, and we can, the inner critic pipes up and all of that stuff happens. But the play is, I find that it's like this pin that just pops all that expectation and stuff. That's And it's something John Cleese talks about in Creativity. I don't know if you've seen his
no.
Does this speech on creativity. It's actually from the late 80s, and he's just brought out a new book. I just bought his book. It's on creativity, but it talks about these five stages of creativity. He says first you need space to do it, then you need time, and then thirdly you need time, and then fourthly you need, I can't remember what the fourth thing is now, but then the fifth one is humor. And he says it's important, because it's the quickest way of actually getting into a creative state, because it takes away all those expectations and things. So anyway, in my own practice, I'm taking it too seriously. I just start laughing about how serious I'm taking it. Gonna grab my guitar. I've been writing a song at the moment, and it's been doing my head in a little bit, and so I just started playing a bossa nova version of it, and it just made me laugh.
Perfect.
I was like, okay, cool, and then I could get back into it.
That's great.
Play.
So important.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about practice and a few of the things that you've set up to sort of create that space for people to engage in their practice in a number of different ways. So first one, maybe we can talk about collective music. So what is it? How can people engage? I don't know if it's mainly just like in the physical realm, like locally in Melbourne at the moment, but maybe tell us a bit about the idea of it, and if people want to
I guess it has predominantly been in person, and last year I was doing classes which were called making music classes, and it was really just like a 6-week course that was teaching people the fundamentals of kind of how to speak music. What are the elements that you need to understand and navigate in order to create music with other people. So it's like, kind of like a how to jam class for people who are kind of at the start of their musical journey. And so I was looking at, how to use rhythms, how to use chords and scales to create harmony and melody, and the other dimensions of like timbre and texture and tone, and what are all the sort of elements of music that make up any song, and how to kind of like, arrange things on a frequency level from bass up to sort of treble, and what the roles of different instruments are, and musical patterns and all of this sort of stuff. So that's I guess the core of the collective music work is really about teaching people how to play together and create together. I have also done like guitar classes and singing classes as well, specifically, so that people can sort of build up their skills in those areas. But you know, I guess there's always an instrument. Sorry?
As part of the collective music, you focused in on like one instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. 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 Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah. How would you describe what the space is and what people come there for and what they get from it?
It's a group of people who come. They come to understand music better, so that they can, you know, get into their creativity more. It really tends to appeal to people who want to understand music more on an intuitive level. So I do really focus on, you know, ways of learning music intuitively, which really connect into movement and speech, the things that we already know how to do, the things that we trust already. We know how to move, we know how to speak, we know what the rhythm of speech is like, we know what the feeling of expressing something is like. So it's just connecting into those things we already know and then just extending them into a musical format, which is not, you know, it's not really a big leap. It's it is pretty intuitive for most people. The thing that is challenging usually is just people allowing themselves to explore and to play. That's sort of often a little hurdle that can happen. But in a group environment where, you know, it's very supportive and encouraging, people just get that chance. Like you're saying with John Cleese, you know, it's just the space and the time to unravel that, you know, and the guidance to unravel it. You know, we do like rhythm exercises, so like involving movement. So, you know, learning how to create a rhythmic pattern in time with a beat, learning how to use the major scale to sort of explore melody, and really, yeah, because it's happening in a group environment, it's interactive. So, you know, I set up exercises that, you know, just provide a framework for that exploration. And, you know, I think that, you know, there are different levels that people are coming in at, and some people come in, you know, from total beginner and they really just need to work with rhythm probably a little bit more to start with. And then people who have maybe a little bit more experience, they can sort of start incorporating other elements of maybe melody and harmony. So people sort of come in at their level and find the piece of the music that they can explore from where they're at. And, you know, but all in the context of sort of creative exercises. So from that place, people are starting to not only understand music, but find where the music is within themselves. And, you know, there is, like I said, it can be challenging sometimes if, you know, because you do have to kind of get over all those messages we have of the cultural attitudes about who deserves to do it, and you really have to give yourself permission. But, you know, if that's what comes up for somebody within that space, then that's an opportunity for them to sort of work with that. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
it's a very inviting space for people to come and play music, where you have permission to try things out and get involved in music, which is where we started this conversation with. Really, was there aren't enough of those spaces where people are just invited to rock up and explore music and have those experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's a very important, special thing. So another thing that you're also a part of is becoming bold performers. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, that's a Facebook group currently, and it is it's a space for, so, you know, as the name suggests, it's about people who perform in any context, whether you want to do an open mic or if you want to actually organize your own gig, or if you're a classical musician or a songwriter or whatever, anyone who performs on stage who experiences performance anxiety, because that's been something that I've struggled with sort of not for my whole musical life, but for the sort of last part of it. Ironically, since I went to uni and all the pressure that came with that, I developed a bit of performance anxiety. So I created that group, for myself and others, to have a platform, like a safe space to kind of put yourself out there and practice performing. So the idea is that, everyone that's in the group is someone who, wants to work with their performance anxiety and has had that experience, so they all understand. And so it's really a safe space and a really supportive space. And the idea is that you do a live video, so not a pre-recorded video, a Facebook Live of you performing whatever you want to practice performing. Which, it brings up all of the anxiety as it would on stage. You know that you're being watched, especially if you see the little icon with the number of people watching. It's like, oh, I'm being watched. It's just that experience of being watched that brings up the self-consciousness and then causes the anxiety and the lack of presence and the, kind of being in that really strange, warped sort of sense of your internal reality, where you're just super self-conscious and worried about everything that you're doing. And it's an opportunity to face it in a supportive environment. So not at a gig where, you don't know half the room and you can easily kind of imagine all the judgments, And yeah, it's just really an opportunity to meet those fears and to kind of work through them. So when I started the group, I was starting to do a bit more performance again of my own solo stuff, and it was really, really helpful for me to, I just every few days or a week I would come and do a live video and practice a song that I was going to be performing. And over time, even over like a few weeks or a couple of months, I started to realize that every time I would go and do a performance, the nerves just weren't there anymore, because I just made a decision to face it. And I just allowed the feelings to be there. I'd sort of come up with a few little mantras and phrases that I would say to myself that would help me kind of soothe myself into performing and make myself okay in the midst of what I don't know other people are thinking or feeling about what I'm doing. And it really, really helped. Yeah. So that's what that group's all about.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, people should go check that out. And I'm just noticing the pattern here of space. You're really creating space for people, safe spaces where people can go and explore something. Exactly. So, the third space is a practice space. So, tell us about that and the importance of practice and what that group sort of aims to achieve.
Yeah, so that's Virtual Music Practice Room. It's a Facebook group, and the idea of that group is to commit to your music practice in some way, shape or form. So, what I do is I've said to the group, made a commitment that at 9 a.m. every morning in Melbourne time, I create a room. So in Facebook now you can create rooms where it says, where you can do live video, where you do a post and you can either click on live or you can add a photo video, or you can also create a room. And the room is it's essentially a Messenger video call, but you access it through Facebook as opposed to Messenger. So just, when you click on room and you set it up, it just opens up a video call and people can join that and do their own practice. So the idea is not that people are practicing the same thing together. It's just that people are practicing in a virtual space together. And the way that one group member put it was, it's kind of like being at music college and seeing people through the glass, like there's all these practice rooms and everyone is in their own practice room doing their own practice, their own personal practice. But you can sort of sense everyone else sort of doing the same thing. And there's something really motivating and inspiring about that, because you know, I know that when I'm on those calls with other people, I'm just spurred on. I just feel more, you know, it's like a catalyst for my own process. It's like, oh, they're practicing, I'm gonna, you know, and it might just make me keep going. But the other thing it does, like when I make that announcement to the group, 9 a.m. every weekday, I'm making a room, please come join me. You know, I really can't get out. I can't make an excuse. I mean, I could just close the group, but that would be dramatic. And I have made a commitment to doing this, and it just helps me show up. So, you know, anyone in the group can create a room. You just say 7:30 tonight, I'm creating a room for an hour, come and join me. You do that. The group knows about it, so anyone in the group can come and join that room. You can say hi to each other when you start. What are you practicing? You know, this is what I'm doing. You can share a bit about, you know, if you've had a challenge or what you're trying to work through, whatever. And then you press mute and their own practice, but you sort of can feel each other on the screen there. And then at the end, you know, whoever starts the room finishes the room and kind of says goodbye. How did you go? Yep. You know, even people could share something if they wanted to. And yeah, it's just it's a way to make it social, accountable, motivating, and it's really for people who do struggle with making time and the space, and you know, who procrastinate or, you know, find that they just need a little bit of external context to help just make it more consistent, really.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And like you were saying, I imagine the quality of the practice also goes up, because it's like if you have a music lesson with your teacher, somehow your skills just jump up a level, you know, like the focus is a bit more there, and that accountability. Yeah. Just like, okay, I'm here with someone else, and I'm not just going to sit in my chair and then just go for a walk. And whatever. This is the defined practice time. And
it is, it is literally a virtual space, not only on the internet but in our own minds. You know, it's a delineated time space, which even just this was a part of the book that I read recently, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talks about the power of making a time and just saying, I'm showing up at this time to do this thing every day, and this is like another level of accountability to actually do that.
Awesome. I love that idea. I'm going to start a room today, so I'm committing now. I have to figure it out. But I'm going to start a room today, so come join me.
Awesome. Yay. That's great.
Great idea. Cool. I think with each one of those, we could actually like talk about each one of those as a separate podcast, and maybe we will in the future. I think that'd be awesome.
Sure.
And, you know, we've got so many other things we can talk about.
Yeah.
You're definitely one of my absolute favorite, you know, conversation buddies over the years.
Yeah. We've had lots of good ones over the years, haven't we?
We chewed each other's ears.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Is there anywhere in particular you want to direct people? I'll leave links for people, so that I highly encourage people to get involved and just check it out. And if they've got a little musical or creative itch they want to scratch, this is such a perfect place to start. Very safe.
Yeah, well, people can check out my website, which sort of it's like a bit of an umbrella site for everything that I have done and am doing, which is just kirstymorphett.com. They can find my page. It's just, again, my name is my page on Facebook, Kirsty Morphett. And then there's the groups, so you can find the Collective Music group on Facebook, you can find the Becoming Bold Performers group, and you can find the Virtual Music Practice Room group. And anyone who practices music or feels like they could benefit from working with a bit of performance anxiety, or, you know, learning a bit more about intuitive and creative approaches to learning music, or you know, some practice accountability, anyone's welcome to join those groups at any level. So you could be total beginner up to pro. There is also the meetup. I've also got a meetup group, which is about the open jams, which I run, which will be starting up again actually this Sunday. So that's for anyone who wants to kind of jump in and do some group improvisation and get into a bit of group music flow with a bunch of like-minded people.
Awesome. Sounds so good.
Yeah.
It's such good work, and you're such an awesome human to be doing it. And so anyone that's listening who is interested, definitely get in.
Yeah, and reach out, if you're not sure, if you like what I've talked about, but you're not quite sure where you would fit in with that, just hit me up on a message. I'm happy to chat to anyone.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kirsty. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kirsty. Like I said, she is a passionate advocate of the arts. She's a deep thinker when it comes to these things and, the importance and the power of music. So I highly encourage you to go and check out all the things that Kirsty and I talked about. I'm going to leave links in the description below, and take this as a really excellent opportunity to scratch that musical itch that you might have and give yourself the permission to make music or explore your music further. And I hope you will do that. I hope you found it inspiring. If you'd like to get a free download of some of my music, you can head to mijobiscan.com/free music. Or if you'd like to buy my latest CD, Golden Moment, get a signed, personalized CD, you can go to mijobiscan.com/GMCD, and that'll be on its way to you soon. Apart from that, if you'd also like to review this podcast, share it around with some friends, like it, thumbs up it, do whatever you need to do, share it on social media. That would be super helpful. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Golden Moment podcast. Peace out. See you soon.